Hi folks, my name is Jay Emerlinson, and I'm a transformation engineering lead here at Software AG and a specialist in the ARIS product set. And today we're going through the art of the possible with ARIS, talking about best practices and how to implement and use ARIS to maximize its value for business transformation in your organization. Now today's topic we're going to be dealing with is how to bring information in from bottom-up initiatives into a top-down structure, and talking about the relationship between top-down approaches and bottom-up approaches. So a question I get all the time from new clients talking about ARIS is, do I have to start this as a top-down initiative? Why can't I just start people modeling the processes they have at the lowest level and just have them do that? Do I need to connect everything together within my organizational structure, within my process hierarchy? Now, well, I absolutely recommend that eventually you do have some semblance of structure in the way the organization is laid out. An enterprise process map, we've talked about in a previous video, the idea of a centralized model versus a federated model with sort of distributed responsibilities and different trees set up by business department. But here's the question: how do I actually start with lower level modeling and do good just right off the bat with lower level groundwork? And the answer is absolutely you can, and you should, if you want to just get started with ARIS. Now, how do we do that while still maintaining harmonization with either A, an established enterprise structure, at least one that you're bringing in or creating simultaneously, or B, how do I leverage what I'm doing to create an enterprise structure? And to do that, we want to think about the idea of sorting knowledge, like we've talked about in the previous videos, into reusable knowledge and non-reusable knowledge, or context-specific knowledge, and figuring out what we can do to get that stuff into where it should go in the hierarchy. So for instance, I just want to start modeling. I want to get my teams working and building models in ARIS. Well, they're free to do that. In this example, I've got a little one process model. I've done a little bit of my own modeling. I've got a start, I've got a couple of different steps, I've got some people called out, I've got a system called out, and I've just made my very own model. Now, how do I bring value to the enterprise from this model? Because it's sort of in its own little island, and maybe it didn't use any standards, maybe it's totally disconnected. There's a few different things that you want to do to connect everything in together. And the first is you want to bring it into the right place inside the hierarchy. So a perfect example of that is, actually, I'm using ARIS Architect here, but as a note for you, you can use ARIS Connect for some of these things. But my first tech tip of the day is, how do I bring my content from one place to another, making sure I keep everything with it? So right now I've got my one process model in its own folder, and I want to bring this into my process architecture. This process actually might fit under a larger context. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my core processes. Let's say, for example, this is a customer service process. So I'm going to go over here to my value-added chain diagram. I'm going to go over and add my one, and this is good. This is a customer service is a process-oriented superior of this, my one process model. We're going to use the assignment thing we talked about before, and I'm going to add this to my customer service model. And then I'm going to add a new group in here called my one process model, which fits into it. And then I'm going to do a special kind of move in ARIS Architect called move here with objects. So what I'm doing is I'm taking these disparate models and I'm moving them with all the objects that were created in this model. Note if I check this little box over here called objects, I can show all the object definitions that are stored in the various folders in my ARIS repository. So I want to make sure I'm moving all these object definitions with their model. So my first tech tip of the day is you can right-click drag. So right-click, hold, and drag. And instead of simply choosing move here, you can say move here with objects. So it's going to pick up all the object definitions with occurrences on that model in the folder and move them to that folder. You see all the occurrences, and if you look in the objects, you'll see all those objects brought in. The next thing I want to do is, as I'm trying to consolidate the knowledge that's been built up within this with my library, my repository. So I'm connecting it in. So this example process made alone, I'm now going to actually take this and attach it So I'm going to left click, drag, and create an assignment. So now I've connected it in with my hierarchy, which is kind of cool. You'll see that. And now I'm going to use the objects on the model and connect those in to my library. Now, this is our second tech tip of the day. You'll see in my example process made alone, I am referring to an application and I'm referring to a person. Now, this application and this person are unique to this one model. They're not reused anywhere else. They only have this one relationship, but they tie in with the rest of the structure of reusable knowledge that I've already got in ARIS. How do I know that? Well, I can do a special type of find. So if you've watched my previous video about finding, there's a really cool feature in Find called Find All Objects with Identical Names. And so what that's going to do is it's going to go through and find all the objects with identical names. And it's looking for all the objects in my environment that are named exactly the same. And so I can make sure that I am only having things named the same way one time. So if I do that find for objects with identical names in here, I'm going to find a whole bunch of different objects that have the same name that I can now use to consolidate. Now, consolidation in ARIS means you right-click and choose Contents, Consolidate Objects. All the combinations of existing objects that have the exact same name can be combined into a single object. Now, I can do that either manually, or I can do it automatically, so if I've got objects with identical names, or for instance, if I wanted to take a look at objects of a certain type. So for instance, I wanted to take a look at objects in my application system type. I can find all the objects here. So here's a plan, here's my clearing system. I can select multiple objects and I can choose to, I can choose to do a consolidation on those through Contents Consolidate Objects. Now what a consolidation is going to do is it's going to let you select which one of these is the master. So a perfect example of that is actually, I'm going to close this back up, and or I can just change the context of the search to go a little bit higher. I'm actually going to go back to my main group, and I'm going to go objects with identical names that are application system types. And you see that I've got that A plan that I put in my model and the A plan that's part of our global library. I'm going to right click and choose Consolidate Objects, and it's going to pull open this nice wizard for me. So I've got one that's in my core processes, my group location. You can see my one process model. This is the one I just made. How am I going to reconcile this disparate modeling that I still want to keep accurate with my standard? Well, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to choose, those are the two things I want to consolidate. The master object around which I'm going to consolidate to is the one that's part of my IT system inventory. Use that as a master. And then I can choose to merge the attributes. So for instance, if I've captured additional information on that object that I want to integrate, what's a great way of doing it? Brings it all together. But sometimes I don't want to do that. I just want to say, listen, you didn't reuse the object that you're supposed to. You just made your own object. I'm going to go over here and finish that consolidation. Yes, I do want to do the consolidation. And once it's completed successfully, let's go back to our one process model. And you'll see A plan now has this assignment. You can see it's got all these properties. In fact, this is the object that is from our object library. So we've been able to keep and bring in this bottom-up methodology of modeling, but we've also been able to keep it harmonized with an enterprise structure should we want to bring it in. So in general, my best practice, my process that I always say is that let people do their modeling if you want them to ingest information. You don't necessarily have to start by setting out and guidelining exactly what you want. The first way we can do things is we can just have a lot of information captured by a lot of people and then consolidate them, all the duplications that come up through modeling. A simple consolidation effort will now harmonize them all to a standard set of applications or a standard set of people. You can bring them into the object library, which is part of a previous topic, where you can now protect them, and you can use a larger community to capture and set your enterprise standards. And that's how we get started. That's how we give people access to at least get moving with our new interface for process modeling. And that's how we can consolidate and control things to make sure that they're done right and that everyone has access to them when they need them. So those are my thoughts. Please leave a like, a share, a comment. Let me know what you think about this sort of best practice. If you want to see any more videos, please feel free to reach out. And hopefully you've been enjoying this Art of the Possible series. This is the second of our series where we plan on doing many more to help you get more of a handle on how to best use ARIS and where you can get the most value out of Software AG's Business Transformation Toolkit. I've been JM, you've been a listener. Thank you so much once again, and we'll see you in the next.